Okay, today we're doing 8.6, solving rational equations. So in the end, we're solving for x here, okay? We start out with x over x minus 3 plus x over x plus 3 equals 2, and we'll go ahead and factor this denominator here into x plus 3 and x minus 3. So the whole purpose of what we're doing here is trying to cancel out the denominators of all three of these fractions. So what we do, we learned in the last section how to get that common denominator. So we're going to multiply all the numerators by the common denominator. So what it looks like is this. Our common denominator, if we look at this thing, is x plus 3 and x minus 3. Okay? So we're going to multiply x minus 3, x plus 3, kind of going up from those fractions. Again, here, x minus 3, x plus 3, and then we're going to cancel numerator and denominator when we do that. Okay, so up here, we're going to multiply by x plus 3, x minus 3, multiply by x plus 3, x minus 3 for all three parts. Okay, so we look at this first fraction here, and you think about what cancels. Well, this x minus 3 will cancel with the x minus 3 up top. So we look at this and we write what's left. So I'm going to cancel the x minus 3's, and what I have left is right here. So we're just going to write that down. X times x plus 3. We look at the second fraction here. What can cancel? These x plus 3's can cancel. What do we have left? We have this x and the x minus 3 left. So let's do that. So we're going to cancel the x plus 3 in the denominator with the x plus 3 in the numerator. Again, what I have left here is this x and x minus 3. So remember, we still have plus in between, so we're going to keep writing that, plus, and then from the pink highlights, x times x minus 3. We look at this last fraction here. What can we cancel? Well, we can cancel the x plus 3 with the x plus 3 and the x minus 3 with the x minus 3. So all of this cancels all of that, and then all we have left is 2. So we'll go ahead and cancel those. So this equals 2. So we still have this extraneous solutions issue, and we have to pay attention to that. So if we have two answers, we have to double check things. So we're going to distribute into the parenthesis first. Don't forget to distribute to both parts of the parenthesis. That's the most common mistake students make. So here we get x squared plus 3x plus x squared minus 3x equals 2. So we're going to look here and combine the like terms. So we have x squared and x squared we can combine. So when we combine two x squareds, shockingly, we get 2x squared. Then we're going to look at the three x's, right? I have a positive 3x here and a negative 3x here. So those two will cancel. 3x and negative 3x cancel. So all we have left then is 2x squared equals 2. To finish the problem, we'll just divide both sides by 2. And we get x squared equals 1. And last step, we're going to square root both sides. Don't forget the plus and minus. Don't forget the plus and minus. And we get x equals plus or minus 1. So I'm going to do this check kind of in my head because it's a pretty easy check to make. If we plug in positive 1 right here, we're not going to get 0. We plug in positive 1 right here, we would get 4. If we plug in positive 1 right here, we're going to get 1 plus 3 is 4, 1 minus 3 is negative 2, we'll get negative 8. So positive 1 works. Negative 1 also works. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. We can divide by negative 4. You can't divide by 0. So your final answer then is plus or minus 1. and we're good. All right, let's move on. We have x minus 1 over x squared plus 3x plus 2. So we can factor this x squared plus 3x plus 2 off to the side here, right? Positive 2 in the numerator, positive 3 in the denominator. What multiplies to positive 2? And what adds to positive 3? Well, the only factors of 2 are 2 and 1, 1 and 2. And they're both positive, so this denominator factors to x plus 2 and x plus 1. So again, we're going to multiply all the numerators by that common denominator. So is it a common denominator, right? X plus 2 is over here, x plus 1 is over here. So again, we will multiply all three pieces by x plus 2 and x plus 1. Okay, so what cancels in that first fraction? We're looking over here. We can see x plus 2 cancels with x plus 2. X plus 1 cancels with x plus 1. So what are we left with? Just x minus 1 on that side. So x plus 2 cancels with x plus 1. And then what do we have left? We just have this x minus 1 right there. So that's the first fraction. Second fraction, what cancels? We look over here, we have an x plus 2 and we have an x plus 2. So those can cancel. So let's cancel those. Then what do we have left? We have 2x and x plus 1 left. So we're just going to write that down. Again, we have a plus right here. So plus 2x parenthesis x plus 1. What cancels in the last fraction? Well, we look here, we have an x plus 1 with an x plus 1. What do we have left? X minus 1 and x plus 2. So, the x plus 1 canceled with that x plus 1. What did we have left? We have left x minus 1 and x plus 2, right? So you can see the x minus 1 and x plus 2 right down there. So you can box the x minus 1 and x plus 2 if you need to. I'll show you that over to the side here. X minus 1, x plus 2. Right, we get x squared minus 1x plus 2x minus 2. So when we combine all that, we get x squared plus x minus 2. So we're going to plug that back into the equation here. So we have x minus 1 plus, and I'm going to go ahead and distribute into the parenthesis. When I do that, 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 1 is just 2x. That equals this right down here, x squared plus x minus 2. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on both sides of the equation here. We're going to combine everything onto one side of the equation. I'm going to move everything to the left side of the equation. I'm going to do that first by subtracting x squared. I'm going to make sure things are lined up. I'm going to subtract x. Over here I'm going to subtract x. I know I have another x right here, right? But I'm going to subtract it from that first x because it will then cancel. We're going to add 2 to both sides, and I'm going to put the 2 below this negative 1 here. So, what do we have left? Well, this cancels. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. 2x squared minus 1x squared is positive 1x squared. We still have the 2x, and that is it. So let's write this in standard form. X squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 0, right? Because we had 0 left over here because every single thing canceled. So now we have a quadratic that we can factor. You're again thinking about the crossover here, 1 on top, 2 on the bottom. What multiplies to the top, what adds to the bottom. The only factors of 1 are 1 and 1, so this factors to x plus 1 times x plus 1. You set that equal to 0. So we'll just set x plus 1 equal to 0. I would subtract 1 from both sides. And we get x equals -1. So, does this solution work? Can we have x equals -1? If we look at the original equation right here, if we plug in a -1 right there, right, -1 plus 1 equals 0, and we can't divide by 0. So we did all of that work, you'll be extra happy to see, to figure out that we have no solution. The problem has no soul. Okay, so let's look at this problem here. X minus 1 over x plus 2 equals x squared plus 2x minus 3 over x squared, or sorry, x plus 2. All right, I'm just going to go to a new page here so I can write this down. So we have x minus 1 over x plus 2 equals x squared plus 2x minus 3 over x plus 2. So if we multiply by the common denominator, we already have a common denominator, x plus 2's. So we can multiply both of these numerators by x plus 2 and multiply this by x plus 2, because then x plus 2's will cancel, numerator to denominator, and then what do we have left? We have x minus 1 equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. So we subtract x from both sides and add 1, and then see if the result factors. So we have 0 equals x squared plus x minus 2. So again, we think about the cross, -2 on top, right? +1 on bottom. Only factors of 2 are 1 and 2. It's got to be 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 equals +1. 1 minus 2 equals -1. So we don't want 1 minus 2. We want this one. 2 minus 1. So these parentheses then factor x plus 2 and x minus 1. So if we set x plus 2 equal to 0, we get -2. If we set x minus 1 equal to 0, we get +1. So x equals either -2 or +1. Again, if we look at our original problem, we had x plus 2 in both denominators. If I plug in a -2 there, right, for this x, we get -2 plus 2, which would equal 0. You can't divide by 0, so this is not a solution. And you can just cross it off like that. You can put a check mark if it works. That's totally fine. All right, let's look at that. All right, let's look at this one. It's kind of weird. I think it's one of your homework problems if I remember from before. First thing I'm going to do is put this over 1. So if I look at this problem, I have a denominator of 1, x, and 1. So what's a common denominator? 1x. So we look at this problem, we multiply by, you can put the 1 if you want to, you don't have to. So what do we do in this first fraction right here? We have x times x, which is x squared. On the second fraction, the x cancels. This x cancels with this x here, so it's just plus 6. We look at the last fraction. The ones cancel, right, but it doesn't do anything, so we just get negative 5x right there. Again, we have a quadratic, right? It's quadratic because it's x squared right there. We have to get everything over to the left side of the equal sign for this problem. We're going to do that by adding 5x to both sides. When we do that, we get x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. Again, we're looking at the cross. We have 6 on top, 5 on the bottom. Factors of 6 are 1 and 6, 2 and 3. 2 and 3 is the one that works, right? 2 plus 3 is 5, and 2 times 3 is 6. So we have x plus 2 and x plus 3 equals 0. So x equals negative 2 or negative 3. So we will look up at the original problem here. The only denominator we had that wasn't 1, the only denominator with a variable was right there. That denominator was x. I can plug in either negative 2 or negative 3. We won't be dividing by 0. So those are both your answers right there, negative 2 and negative 3. Okay, so of course they throw in random problems like this. This gets into literal equations. Literal equations are equations with mostly variables, and we're trying to manipulate the equation to solve for one of the variables. In this case, it wants us to solve for this b right here. So not the squared, just the b. So let's go ahead and do that. We look at this problem here, and the first thing I'm going to do is cross multiply. So when I cross multiply this way, I have m. Let's just write it like this. 2vm equals b squared, r squared, and then times this q right here. So we want to solve for this b right here. We're going to solve for b squared first, and then we'll get rid of the squared. So we look at this thing, how do we get the b by itself? Well, I've got multiplication in between. How do we undo multiplication? Divide. So we're going to divide by r squared q on both sides. So then I'm going to write the b squared on the left. We get b squared equals, right? The r squared cancels, the q cancels, and we have this entire fraction left on the right side of the equal sign. So 2vm over r squared q. And then how do we get rid of a square? We square root both sides, not forgetting the plus or minus. Okay, so square root plus or minus. Final answer then is b equals plus or minus square root of 2vm over r squared q. This square root goes all the way to the bottom there. All right. So there's your homework. Your homework will be on the board. The substitute will write it on the board. And that is the lesson. Thank you.